So in this video I'm going to tell you how you can create the collection of the HTTP requests and then run those tests to verify the APIs are working properly. So to create a collection, just click here and create a new collection, and then the folder will be created something like this, and then you can add the requests in that particular collection. So just click here and then you can add a new request like that. Give the request name post, and then you can save to exam. So this exam is in a collection, so that way you can create a new requests. Now you can also add some variables for that particular collection. So if you click on edit, so most of the times what happens is you have to pass some tokens, especially the bearer tokens. So you can specify the token here and token type here. So there can be different types of tokens, for example API key, then bearer token, basic auth, digest auth 1.0, 2.0, Hawk authentication, AWS signature, NTLM authentication, Akamai edge grid. So bearer token are very popular. So what you have to do is just select the token type and then paste the token here. So what happens is all the requests that will be created in this particular collection, those requests will have that header, authentication header populated with bearer token. So you don't need to worry about the authentication then, which is pretty handy. And you can also write pre-request scripts if there are any. So those scripts will be running before every request that is sent in this particular collection, and there are some tests if you want to run, and variables of course. So variables are also very important because if you set the variables here, those variables can be used in any of the requests in this particular collection. So that way you can create the variables, and once the requests are created, you can say, for example, you can give the authorization headers here, body. In the body there can be XML and JSON. So if you want to pass the XML and JSON data, then you can select raw and then click here JSON or XML. And you can also send the data in binary format as well as in the form of form data or XWW form URL encoded. That way also you can send the data. Now another important thing that you need to remember is, most of the times what happens is, say this is one request, and what you have to do is you have to get the response from this particular request, and then fetch some kind of, say for example this particular request is creating say customer ID, and then you have to use that customer ID in the next subsequent request. So what you have to do is you have to capture the response from this request, and then from that response you have to extract the customer ID, for example. So what you have to do is you have to go to the tests, and then you have to write the tests here and set one environment variable, say customer ID, and that customer ID, that environment variable, you can use in the next subsequent request. So if you go here, I have created already some of the things, say post product. So in the tests tab you can specify the tests. Say you have to get some environment variable, you can use that syntax pm.environment.get, and if you want to set some environment variable you can do that way. If you want to clear the environment variable you can use environment.unset. Then there is a globals context as well. So globals of these variables are actually outer variables, we can say, and then environment variables are specific. So that means whatever environment you select here, say currently there is a dev environment, so that environment variables will be used. And then if you want to create the test, you can use the syntax pm.test, test type or test name, and then the callback function. So this is actually the function where the test execution is happening. So once you get a response, you can do a lot of things with the response. For example, sometimes you want to check the content type or any header, for example. So here we are checking content type, but there can be different other headers as well. So if you look here, there are different types of headers like this. So you can check the response has specific header, or header's value is exactly matching like this. For example, content type should be application JSON and character is equal to video feed. So we are checking that thing here. So this is for the headers. Now if you want to check some content, actual content in the body, then what you can do is you can, if you want to check the response code, say 200, as you can see the status or the response code of this particular request is 200. So you can do that way, response.to.have.status 200. Then if you want to check that the response contains specific string, then you can use this syntax pm.expect response text to include string you want to search, and then there is a pm.response.json. So if the response is in the JSON, then you can also create or convert that response into the JSON object, and then you can access the properties in that JSON object using this syntax JSON data.value, or whatever data is there, you can access the properties like that, and then you can check or do the assertions like this. And another thing is, if you want to check the response time of the request, then you can do like this one. So here we are checking that the response time is less than 200 milliseconds. And another thing that you need to do is you have to check the schema as well. So sometimes if you want to do the schema validation, you can store the schema like this, const schema is equal to, and then the schema object. So you can create the schema based upon the response. For that you will have to go to the this particular website, jsonschema.net home, and you can paste the response there, and it will create the schema for you automatically. So you can just use that schema and then paste it here in this variable, schema is equal to, and once it is there, you can test the schema like this, pm.response.to have JSON schema and then this variable. So if the schema is matching, then test will pass. If schema is not matching, test will fail. As simple as that. So that's how you can write the tests. And as I said, sometimes you will have to create an environment variable, say customer ID. Then you can use set customer ID here, and then here you can extract the value from the response. So to get the value from the response, you can use this syntax JSON data.customer ID, something like that, based upon the response type. And then once the variable is in the environment, once we create that environment variable, in the next request, say you want to use that variable, so what you can do is you can use this syntax. So two curly brackets, opening curly brackets and closing curly brackets, and then the variable name here. So what happens is that it will check if that particular environment variable exists with this name ID, and if it is, then it will be used here. So it will be replaced by that value, and then that way you can use that next subsequent requests. Now if you want to run the test, so sometimes what you have to do is let us say there are 5 requests in a particular collection, and you want to run all those requests. So you have to just click on this collection button, and then you have to click on this button, and then click on run here, and then runner will open up in another dialog, and there you can specify if you want to save the responses. You have to select the environment, and you can click on collection. So here you can select the order as well, so because most of the times order will be important, so you can change the order here if you want. And if you want to skip some requests in that collection, then you can uncheck this one, so that way only those requests that have been checked will be executed. So that is how you can run the collections. So as you can see, I just executed this test, and 4 tests have passed and 12 have failed. Okay, so that way you can execute the tests or the requests in particular collection. Or if you are not happy with running tests through this UI, what you can do is you can run the tests from command line as well. So if you want to run the tests in command line, you can use this particular, you will have to download this package Newman, and then you can execute this command Newman run, and then this is the collection.json. so you will have to export this collection. Say if you want to export the collection, just click on these three dots and then click on export, and you can select export. So what happens is this collection will be exported into the JSON format or JSON file, and then that you can use to run the tests through the command line or the CI server as well. So you can use this syntax Newman run and then that exported file name. So in that way the command tests will be executed in the through the command line. So a couple of important things. Authorization is very important. So if your application is using some tokens, you can use this authentication type here and then give the token name there, and in the headers you can set the headers if you like. For example, content type is very important, and accept encoding, and one of the most important thing in here is the body. Okay, so mostly you will be sending the data in the form of JSON or XML, so you will have to select raw here and then select the format here. But sometimes you will have to send the data in other format, for example the form data, like that. So mostly if you want to send the data in the, like when you submit the form in the web application, so generally in the old applications when JSON was not very popular or the REST APIs were not popular, people used to send the data in the form of form data. So basically form data is nothing but the key value pair, the collection actually. So you can send that way, and another way is by sending the data in the XWW form URL encoded format. So it is similar to the form data, only thing is that it is URL encoded. And then there is the binary as well. So binary is basically allows you to send the data in terms of the file, for example image file you want to upload, so that kind of scenario, or any binary file basically you can send it in the body. And another way you can send the data is in the GraphQL. So GraphQL is actually similar to the JSON kind of thing, but here you have got the query and the GraphQL variables thing, and you can also select the schema as well here if you want. So another important thing, so if you want to write the tests, you don't need to write the tests from the scratch. On the right hand side you will see here they have got a lot of snippets that you can use. Say for example if you want to check the response body is equal to a string, so you just click here. So go to the tests and then click here. So you can see the test, this particular test is automatically added for you. So there are a lot of snippets here that they are given. It's very pretty handy. You can use them in your project. And also another important thing that you need to remember is you can also convert these particular requests in the popular languages, for example Java, .NET, JavaScript as well. So for that what you have to do is go to the code here, and then you can see you can convert these requests in specific language, for example say curl. So that is how this request is gonna look like. If you want to execute this request in say JavaScript or say Java, so that is how this is gonna look like. Then JavaScript jQuery, JavaScript fetch, okay, and JavaScript XHR, that is how it is gonna look like. Then there is a Node.js native, this is how it is going to look like. Then there is a PHP as well. So basically you can convert your collection or requests in a specific Java language as well. It is also a pretty cool feature provided by the Postman. I hope this video was very useful. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching this video.